Today's video we're going to discuss SARS valid tax invoice requirements. It's a big risk area for a lot of companies. When I do spot checks, I find that a lot of companies simply don't meet the requirements, but it's an easy fix. Let's look at the requirements that the invoice was met. If it exceeds 5,000 Rand, it is called a full tax invoice. First, it must contain the words tax invoice, VAT invoice or invoice. This one contains the word tax invoice, it is valid. In practice, we get it a lot that it states pro forma invoice. You can't claim VAT on a pro forma invoice. You also cannot claim VAT when it is a quote. Right, next it must have the name, the address and the VAT registration number of the supplier. There is the supplier's name, there is the address, there is the VAT number. Please note the VAT number will always start with 4. What we also see in practice, some people add VAT to the invoices, then they add their tax number, which normally for companies starts with a 9 next to VAT number. It is possible to see whether a VAT number is valid by going to the SARS website. You can just Google, check VAT registration number SARS or VAT vendor search, and you will be able to verify the VAT number of the supplier. Then next it must have the name, the address, and where the recipient is a vendor, the recipient's VAT registration number. There it is, the customer name is there, the address is there, the VAT number is there, it's valid. Serial number and date of issue of invoice. There is your invoice number, your serial number, there is your invoice date. Then it must have accurate description of goods and or services, and if it's second-hand goods, it must indicate that. So in this case it says first provisional tax return 2026. That is an accurate description. If it's simply stated services rendered, that would not have been an accurate description. Quantity or volume of goods or services supplied, there is the quantity. Value of supply, the amount of tax charged and the consideration of the supply, which is value and tax. There you see it. So note, all 7 criteria must be met for the invoice to meet the requirements of a tax invoice. In this case, all 7 requirements have been met, and this customer here would be able to claim this VAT input back from SARS. Okay, so let's have a look at an abridged tax invoice. That's where the supply including VAT is greater than 50 Rand but less than 5,000 Rand. There are 2 less requirements than a full tax invoice. You'll remember the name, the address and the VAT registration number of the customer or recipient had to appear on the full tax invoice. It's not needed for an abridged tax invoice. It can simply state cash. And then the quantity or the volume also doesn't have to appear on an abridged tax invoice. Then 2 quick tips. Number 1, the easiest way to get a valid tax invoice from a supplier is simply to refuse to pay that invoice until they issue you with a tax invoice that meets all the requirements of SARS. Number 2, some people are better with admin work than others. They like it more. Make sure there's at least one person in your company that's sensitive when it comes to tax invoices. Or if you don't have somebody internally, outsource it to your accountant, because it can save you a lot of money and headaches in the future.